So thanks for joining us today. It sounds like we're going to go for about 45, 50 minutes, something like that. And because there's another recording, or another session behind us. So, um, and can you still see my slides? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get going. Again, my name is Seth Brown, the Executive Director for the National Municipal Stormwater Alliance. And really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys about what's going on in the national perspective. I'm going to also talk about just give you a quick overview of what I'll be talking about. I want to give some context to NMSA. There's a lot going on here, and we're trying to really get a lot more folks at the local level involved as we continue to grow and evolve. So we'll talk about that. So a lot of stuff going on, the legal and policy, the regulatory and legislative side of things. I'll talk about that. We've been very involved. And Washington's been a big part of that too. So I want to talk about that. Also want to give some updates on our biggest program, our most active program, which is the STEP program. And a lot of that's inspired by the TAPE program. So there's a lot of relevance to Washington. And then I do want to share some new things that we're doing on training and then tie things up. So anyway, and if there's questions, I'm happy to answer any questions anytime, whether it's now or if you want to email me later or whatever. I'd love to address any questions. So just real quickly before we get going too far, I want to highlight, what's been going on. Again, I'm going to highlight some things up front that I'll elaborate on as I go along, but I just want to make sure that it's clear what's going on right now. That we've got this STEP program, this testing program, again, that's continuing to grow and evolve. It's great. I'll share some specifics on that. The Center of Excellence, we are part of the Cold Climate Center of Excellence. I'll talk about that and where that is and where things are going to be going in the future. I think there's Washington State and the Pacific Northwest is not really included in this, and that needs to change. And it's something we want to talk about. We're offering, like I said, different training options. Want to make sure everyone is aware of that. We're continuing to lead. We're part of what's called the National Stormwater Leadership Coalition. We are also with Lori being one of the Lori Sampio that was part of our fly-in event, our Washington, and I'm in the DC area. So we always have an annual policy fly-in. She joined us for that, and we've had more engagement in Congress than we've ever had, which is really, really good. But there's more that needs to be done. Really focusing on trying to get more and more local members, like I said, MS4s to join. That's really what we need to do to sustain. We have increased communications engagement. We've not been as good about doing these types of things. Part of an organization like us and our activities is that part of it is doing things, and the other part is telling people that we're doing things. So we need to make sure that that's clear. We need to do a better job of that. But anyway, getting into where things actually, what we're about. For those who don't know what NAMPS is about, we're a coalition that's focused on the MS4 sector. We're the only national organization that does that. So we've been around since 2018 officially. Started a little bit before that, but around 7 years. And we got state or groups like Washington Stormwater Center, and we also have MS4s that are members, and we have others that are members. We're trying to create this again this stakeholder-driven approach to leadership in stormwater. The motivation for formation, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but basically we're trying to help catalyze the maturation of the sector. We're trying to get to the next level, more or less. I spent time at the Water Environment Federation, and from that perspective, you can see an organization that really represents a sector in the water sector, the larger water sector, the wastewater sector. They do a great job. We need to do something similar for stormwater, and that's missing. I think there are a lot of groups who touch on the stormwater area, but none that focus the way that we are trying to do. And our vision is very clear. We're trying to provide clean water for the nation, like a lot of other coalition or a lot of other groups. Our action areas are in four different areas. Sector support, that's our main thing. We're a 501c3, and we're dedicated to focusing on supporting MS4s. That's our mission. So that's one of our top action areas, but also messaging communication, raising awareness of stormwater issues, advocating for that. through policy, that last bullet down there, and then also developing and disseminating educational tools and trainings and materials and whatnot too. So those are the areas that we're most active. Just real quickly, where we are again, we started with about 5 state organizations. So these are organizations that represent 5 or more MS4s in that state. There are some states that have multiple groups, which is fine too. There's just when you're a national organization, you have to be sensitive to the fact that there's governance and across the country is very different. Where does stormwater programs, are they the hyper local level like in New England, or are they the county level like kind of where I'm at in the Virginia area? Is very similar to a lot of things are at the county level. So anyway, there is a diversity there, and so that's what we represent. So all the states on this map there that are blue are NMSA members, state members. So we have a state organization, of course. Washington is included in that. Hawaii actually is a member too. I keep forgetting to color that in, but so we've got 26 total state organizations that cover over half the regulated population, so 4,400 total regulated communities and population in the U.S. So we've got pretty good coverage in that larger network, but we're trying to get more and more MS4s to join us. And there's a QR code. Learn more about our membership. You can join online, and I'll talk a little bit more detail about the different options on that. But we also have affiliate members, which are recently retired professionals who can keep working and stay involved with the sector. And I'm sorry, that's emeritus members. I apologize. Are folks who are recently retired or semi-retired. They don't pay anything. They just get to continue the leadership that they've developed in their years of experience. And we've got 4 or 5 of those folks right now too. So, and affiliate members are anyone else, consultants, others. And here's just to give a sampling of the different members. We've got state members up there. So Washington's up there along with Iowa and Tennessee and Alabama and so on. We've got members who are support our testing program, which are, groups that are Contech and others. But we also have some public sector partners that way too. And we have affiliate members, law firms, technology groups, consultants, and Atkins Reals as an example. So this is a sampling of our current members. And here's a listing of our current membership for MS4s. We've got a number from Washington State, which is not surprising how advanced and how strong the ethic is in Washington State. We're hoping to get more and more, but we're getting across the country, getting more members to join us. So that's a great thing. We need to get this into the hundreds of thousands. If we can do that, then we're going to be able to do this and sustain and grow in a much, much broader way. That's our plan. So I just throw that out there because if you're interested in joining, there's information available. I'm not going to go through this whole slide. If you go to that link or that QR code, and again, these slides will be available, so you can take a look at this later. You can see you can join online. There's a lot of different options. You can, if you join as a group of phase 2 MS4s or non-traditional MS4s, for instance, you can get a cheaper a rate by joining in kind of an economy scale kind of thing. So, so that's something to keep in mind. Like I said, MS4s can join both NMSA as well as the STEP program. And I'll talk about the STEP program so you can understand, but there's you can just join NMSA, or you can join NMSA or STEP, which also gets you into the NMSA membership as well. So the rates are a little bit higher. So you can see those rates here. I'm not going to go through this whole list of membership benefits, but you can see we're trying to basically we're setting up MS4 committees, for instance. As soon as we get more and more MS4s to join, we'll get a critical mass. We're going to start setting up committees. And what's going to be unique about these committees within NMSA is that they're going to be populated by only MS4 program staff. So that way it can be MS4 staff talking to each other across the country, learning from each other, disseminating information, which I think is that's something we've heard a lot about. There's a lot of interest in that. So that's something that we're setting up right now. The more that we get folks to join, the quicker we can get these committees set up. But anyway, you can get access to some discounts. You can see all the webinars that we have for free, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do the whole list. Again, you can go check out our membership information page, and you can join there and get more information on all of this there. But I also wanted to mention that we have a free membership option, and that's a big deal because it's a way to get into the program, and then you can get an understanding of how it works, what it's about, if it's something you want to continue. And it's something that you don't. It's an easy way to join without having to go find out, can we join this, if you need to get permission, or you need to get the kind of credit card or whatever from the organization. You can just join, gets you in the door, and then you can kind of put your foot in, you put your toe in the water and see if that's something you want to continue to do. So the point here is we want to get as many involved as possible. And the hope is, again, that if you get involved, you're like, oh, I get it. I want to be part of this. I can join a committee. I can see what's going on. Again, we're building this ship. So the more we get to join, the quicker we can get committees to be set up and whatnot too. So, but you'll be part of our newsletter that we send out. We have quarterly meetings that we're going to be doing, and to kind of get you understanding what's going on at the national level. It's really what it's about, and also hearing from others. So this removes the barrier to costs that's out there. Just a sampling of what we're doing on initiatives and projects, just so you have an understanding of what we're doing. I mentioned this annual fly-in event. We call them people fly in from across the country. There's something called Water Week. It's the first or second week of April, typically. This week, I think it starts on April 13th. And we've had 9, and this will be the 10th year that we have a annual National Stormwater Policy Forum, where we have a half-day event or most day event starting around noon, going till 5. Event where people can come in for free, attend this event. We usually get 80 to 100 people that show up in person. We usually get maybe 150 to 200 that join online for free. It's for free for now. I don't know if it's going to continue that way, but it has been up to this point. And we have, EPA comes and talks. We have got legislative staff comes in and talks. And we have kind of a hot topics panel. We have researchers and legal and policy specialists come in and talk about what's going on, the big issues of the day. So we also develop what's called like a one-page or a small document, a short document that's shown down there as the recommendations to improve stormwater in the U.S. 2025. That's something that we produce every year, and it outlines what our priorities are. So you can go to Capitol Hill, meet with your members and or various congressional bodies, and you know exactly what you're going to say. It kind of spells it all out there, and you leave it behind for the staff that you meet with. And that has led to a lot of changes in a positive way for us. So we work together with the Water Environment Federations as well as the National League of Cities, National Association of Counties on this. It's one of the more successful things we do. We always post the recordings, and they're available at our YouTube channel. So if you ever want to see one of these, we post it usually within a week of that happening. So we also have, as of now, all of our or most of our webinars that we've recorded are available on the YouTube channel. We're probably going to be putting those behind a wall at some point. But if you go to our YouTube channel, you can get a lot of information there on webinars and past meetings. And we do have training information that I'll talk about later. I won't dwell on that now. Just like what you guys are doing here with awareness, that's a big part of what needs to be done, frankly. There's so many of these awareness weeks or days or months across the country. We decided, why don't we set up a day that recognizes all of these awareness months? So we've done this for, I think this is the 3rd or 4th year now, and it's set for November 16th. Because that's when the first phase 1 MS4 program was went into the official Federal Register record. So it's around that. I think it's this year. I think it might be November 17th. I think is when it's going to be. We'll get information out, and I'm sure that Lori can get it out in the newsletter and whatnot. But the point of it is that it's just a way. It's an hour long, usually an hour and a half long, a free webinar. And we're just there to recognize champions in the sector, and just recognize the work that you all do, and that it has value. And so if you go to stormwater.day, you can see information there. We've got a toolkit of information you can promote, you can use. We've got a logo and all that kind of stuff. So when we'll be sending information out on this. But again, this is another one of those things that we're doing just to celebrate what you're doing this week, which is great. I appreciate that. The Washington Stormwater Center is doing this. as well. I think it's great that we get more and more of these going on. We also have what's called the National MS4 Online Resource. This is kind of an MS4 101. There's a lot of information here for those who are new, relatively new, or want to learn more about the MS4 program, the basics of it. We put this together in concert with EPA Region 9, just to make sure that there was information out there on the basics of the program, because there's so much turnover going on. Also, we have you can submit any kind of study, any information you want to. We're trying to develop this library for things that are just focused on the MS4 sector, and it could be funding, it could be new studies, it could be whatever. So you can go to this URL, upload whatever you want. We have to review it to make sure it's not too commercial, obviously, but it's something that we need to promote more. We're going to be developing training from this information in the future, but in the meantime, you can go there and check it out right now. We also have the Community-Based Public-Private Partnership Center of Excellence, and that is relevant to Washington because Washington has an ongoing, through ecology, ongoing CBP3 program that we're also involved with to try to provide another way to accelerate the adoption of green infrastructure, but do it in a way that drives local economies in a positive way and provides opportunities for small and disadvantaged businesses in a sustainable way, and also reduces cost for implementation and other benefits. So we've been involved with this topic for a number of years. We continue to do this. We're going to continue to do this in the future. But if you want more information, you can go to our CBP3 page and learn more there. That's something else we do. We also support the ASCE Infrastructure Report Card. We got a D in 2021 and 2025, so we got work to do, but it's a great tool for us as a national organization to be able to, again, go to advocate at Capitol Hill during our flying event and say, look, we have significant needs, and these are the specific needs that we have in these areas. So we partner with ASC on that, and it's great. And we've had a webinar for each time that these have been released, starting in 2021 and again in 2025. So it's very important. Appreciate that ASC takes this leadership, and they're continuing to do this. But it's something that's really important at the national level to be able to advocate for that. I mentioned the centers of excellence, the Stormwater Centers of Excellence. There's 4 of these right now. There's the Desert Research Institute is leading one in the West and Southwest primarily. Oklahoma University is leading one for the Great Plains. Center for Watershed Protection is leading kind of the Southeast coastal area. And then the University of New Hampshire and the University of Minnesota has teamed together along with us to focus on cold climate centers research. The reason that we work with that we teamed with them, we teamed with many groups. There were 30 proposals that went in, only 4 were selected. Clearly, there's a huge demand, and there's a big need overall. And this is something that came about. We advocated for this in congressional language and marker bills as far back as 2011 when I was at WEF, and then we have advocated for it since we were formed in 2016, 2018. So it took 14, 15 years to get into legislation or to get implemented. It was part of the infrastructure bill, the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, or the bipartisan infrastructure law. That's where the funding for these came from. So just to give you some background on that. Again, 4 were selected. There was, I think, up to 5 that could have been that were identified in legislation, but they only selected 4. We are advocating for expansion of the funding for these 4. We're advocating for the expansion of the number. Clearly, there's, again, the Pacific Northwest is a gaping hole, leading research area, and they're not represented. That's not a good thing. Where I am in the Mid-Atlantic, it's kind of missing somewhat. So there's a lot of reasons to have more of these centers of excellence. So, but anyway, what they're doing, just so we're aware what's going on. 3 main things: conduct research, makes sense for a center of excellence on kind of a research-oriented type of program, but also looking at providing technical assistance on programmatic issues, technical issues, even financial and funding approaches and whatnot. And then we also have to collaborate with other organizations and other entities across the country to make sure that we're trying to spread the news and information on what we're doing and the benefits coming from that. So this is it literally just kicked off. I mean, officially kicked off in April, but we didn't get our contract until August, I guess. So we're just starting this out. So we don't have much to report on as of yet, but we will be over the next couple of years, and it wraps up March of 2027. So it's pretty short burn on this, but we'll be sharing information with the sector on this. And again, we're going to continue to advocate for more of this in the future, more centers and more funding overall. I also mentioned early on the National Stormwater Leadership Coalition. This is another thing that's just starting out right now. It's NMSA is partnering with American Rivers, which is an environmental NGO. And the idea is, and we've got some philanthropic funding to get this going. It's going to be going for the next couple of years, but there's a lot of these groups that are interested or have some kind of touch point with stormwater. So like ASE or APWA or National Association of Counties, and and even National Home Builders and others. Then there's all these researchers that have an interest in this area, and there's of course practitioners. With all these kind of swirling around, the point of this coalition is to provide a place for those folks to plug in and to become part of a group that's going to develop over the next year and a half, 2 years, depending how things go, an action-oriented national policy agenda. What can we do? And it's important for municipal groups like NMSA and NLC and NACO and those other groups and WEF and others to work with the environmental groups, because oftentimes there's been tension. But there's also a lot of areas of agreement. So we can find areas of agreement and we can focus on that, then we can move ahead. And having both the environmental NGO sector as well as the municipal and technical groups on the same page, it's very powerful, and we can get a lot more done by working together. So that's what we're going to be exploring. Again, this is just starting out, so we'll share more as things develop. So things that are happening at the national level, there's just a ton going on. As I mentioned, legislation already a little bit, but here's a little more detail. Again, in our last policy forum, National Stormwater Policy Forum, again, that's part of Water Week. So the drinking water and the wastewater sector also have their own, and the water reuse sector and others. They all have events going on this entire week. So it's a great time to be focusing on water issues at Capitol Hill. So these are again, we developed what's called an ask document, because they are the specific asks. You have to go to Congress and say, this is exactly what we're asking for. And so that articulates what we're looking for. So we're looking for more funding for community infrastructure, market-based approaches. So trading or offsite mitigation, and ways to streamline is an unfortunate term, improve the permitting process. What we're talking about there is not watering the regulatory and permitting process down. It's more about just trying to reduce duplication, things that are not as effective, so that we can take the limited resources that we all have and use them to actually put things in the ground and treat water. That's what really we're trying to do at the end of the day. So and we're doing more work on that. And I'll talk about that in a second. We also met with, like I said, a number of offices, Senator Padilla's office in California. You might say, why Senator Padilla, not others? We did meet with others, but I want to highlight Senator Padilla because the senator sits on the Environment and Public Works Committee for the Senate side, which has direct input and oversight onto stormwater issues, as an example. So it's really important that you target the right offices, and so that's what we try to do. And we also meet with all the appropriations committees, because they're the ones who decide on what's funded and what's not. They have a lot of technical questions. They want to know, what does stormwater really mean in this context or that context. So that's the kind of input we provide, is clarification. We share our asks. These are the priorities from the sector, and we also again address any technical questions that come up. There are other priorities. One that we've been focusing on, and I'm sure everyone's heard a lot about, is PFAS or PFOA. The issue there is that since PFAS is designated as a toxic or hazardous substance or toxic under it falls under the CERCLA program, which I don't know that much about, frankly. Know more about the NPDES program, I think, than just like most of us. But I know that in CERCLA, it's like super fun is when you can think of it as CERCLA. And it's in that program, when there's lawsuits that happen, companies can drag in others into their lawsuits. And this is the typical approach. So let's say of DuPont or somebody who is a big generator producer of PFAS. If they get sued, they would try to get others involved with the lawsuit to try to offset. I'm not saying they will. I don't want to get whatever. That's hypothetical. But the point is that oftentimes there are two parties for this. There are those who generate the toxic or the hazardous substance and those who transport. Obviously, we'd be considered a transporter. I would think for the most part. And so it's called being a passive receiver of PFAS. We're working with a coalition of dozens and dozens of other organizations in the water sector and beyond to say we need to have some kind of coverage because we're not generators of this. This should really be something that should impact those who actually generate the pollutant and the toxic, because they would just be trying to reduce their liability by spreading it out into getting others in the public sector, wastewater, drinking water facilities, stormwater, MS4s. So there is legislation that's now been introduced and will be expanded upon in the future. But this is something that we're really focusing a lot on. So I know that's something that's in your like industrial permit monitoring of PFAS. And I guess we're not against it, managing it, treating it. Of course, it needs to be treated and managed. We're just trying to make sure that we're not burdened with a lawsuit that we can't, frankly, do much about, and it's expensive. Other things that we're focusing on is the Clean Watershed Needs Survey, which is needs funding to continue. That's something that EPA reaches out. It's supposed to be every 2 or 4 years. It has been done for 10 years until the most recent one in 2022. It's really helpful because the more that these surveys are done and the more funding is provided, the more that we're basically finding out these are the needs in the stormwater sector. We're getting better. The EPA is getting better, and they've done a really good job of really digging into the stormwater data to see, hey, there are really significant needs in the stormwater sector. And I'll talk about that in a second. Again, I talked about increased and expanding funding for the Stormwater Centers of Excellence, talked about a little credit trading or offsets, or offsite mitigation. And there's a marker bill that's being developed on providing a tax credit for green infrastructure on private property, which could be a big deal. It's modeled after like solar credits. It's in development. I don't have any other details to share, but that's the kind of stuff that we're tracking and we provide support for and technical input on as we're engaged. So there's a lot of other things we could talk about, but those are the big ones. On the policy front, it's always funding. We're always asking for more funding. Again, that's something I can dig into if someone has any questions or thoughts, but funding through the SRF program, which frankly has been terrible for funding stormwater. Less than 2% of the funding over the duration of that whole program has gone to regulated stormwater programs. But there's others, the Overflow and Stormwater Grants Program, or OSG, which is a grants program, which is really what we need at the national level, at the federal level. And it's woefully underfunded. In fact, it's so underfunded that this exists now, but so many states, there's like, I think quarter to a third of the states, and there's some reporting that's supposed to be coming out soon on this, but quarter to a third of the states didn't even use this funding because it was so limited. It just there wasn't enough administrative, money to actually move forward with this program. So it's very underfunded, but that's a pathway for significant funding in the future. So we have this vehicle now that we are trying to advocate for more investment into the OSG program as an example. Other things are going on. The waters of the U.S. is a big deal. What we're looking for are, as they're doing this rulemaking, which they're going to be doing, they're doing now, and they will be doing throughout this year and next year. is making sure that there is an exemption for stormwater for stormwater infrastructure, because we don't want to get dragged into a waters of the U.S. kind of challenge, because we've got natural infrastructure that may be seen as waters of the U.S. So I'm not, and there's some other things, and I'm not highlight these, so rather than talk about them now. So I talked about the Clean Watershed Needs Survey. This is something for those who don't know about this. This is again, this EPA leads this effort. It's supposed to be every, like I said, 2 to 4 years. I can't remember. It's actually written in law, but it needs to be funded in order to happen. It was done in 2022 most recently. Before that, it was 2012. So there was a 10-year gap there in data. And this is a EPA asking the states about their needs over a 20-year horizon. So the numbers that you see there are over 20 years. I think it's probably more accurate that's over 5 years, because you can only look out so far. But anyway, in the most recent, the 2022 survey, there's a huge increase over the last reported number for needs in stormwater. 2012 is 24 billion. Now it's about 115 billion. Again, this is over 20 years. This is a national number. It's really, it's a huge increase of identified stormwater. And I think the more that we dig into this, the more we're going to realize there's more and more needs for this. So that's why I'm highlighting this. It's really important because this indexes needs across federal programs, like the OSG program, like I mentioned, it indexes needs by this information at the state and regional level. If you Google the Clean Watershed Needs Survey, you can go, there's actually an interactive map you can go to identify needs at the state level. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of good information. On the regulatory side, we recently met with the Deputy Office of a Water Administrator. There's an extra W there. Office of Water Administrator in May of this year. It's the highest meeting we've ever had in EPA. So there's the EPA Administrator, then below that there's the Office of Air and Water and whatever. That Office of Water has a deputy. So that's who we met with, and that was because the Office of Water political appointee, the Assistant Administrator, her name is Jess Kramer. She hadn't been confirmed at that point. She just got confirmed within the last couple of weeks, actually. And she's got, she'd set up the stormwater regulations in Florida. And so she's got a lot of insights into stormwater and has a lot of interest. So they gave us a high level meeting, which is great. And we had our members from our organization from these states here, Iowa, Oklahoma, New Hampshire, California, Tennessee, all in this meeting. And we went over these topics, and they basically said, we want to hear more about your testing program step, and we want to hear more about how you think the permit program, the MS4 permit program should be improved. So we are following up. We'll have a meeting with them in mid-November, about a month or 5 weeks from now, to say, here's what we learned from the sector about permit improvements. And so we set up a website. If you go to that the URL, or you can click on, or you can scan that QR code, it'll take you to a page where you can provide input on all of these areas that we have listed here. You can agree or disagree, or provide another opinion. You can provide your own views, and you can provide other topics that we may have missing. So we're probably going to keep this up through the end of October. So we'll be sending more information out on this. So I'm sure it'll be in newsletters that you'll be seeing in the future, but just be aware that's the context of it. We're going to be using this information again to go back to EPA, and we might keep it open longer depending on how things go. But the point is that we need to start advocating for what we think should be changed and made this program more effective, not trying to get it watered down, but to make it more effective overall, especially when we're talking about costs. So on the legal side, I'm not a lawyer, but being in DC, you can't help but be surrounded by lawyers and legal issues, especially these days where we've got all of these rulings at the Supreme Court level. Again, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but like Chevron, the Chevron doctrine was overturned, just a huge deal. It's the most cited Supreme Court ruling ever. And it set up the administrative, architecture of this country. That being overturned was a huge deal. Chevron was used to decide cases in stormwater in the past. For instance, are flow-based TMDLs allowed or not? Chevron doctrine was used to find out it wasn't, because flow is not considered a pollutant, so therefore you can't limit it in a TMDL context. So Chevron has actually been really good on the environmental side, even for this flow-based thing. It may not have gone the way that we would want, but in some ways it does, because it's stuck to the legal basis for what is the Clean Water Act supposed to address: pollution. But we all know volume is a big issue, and we are managing it. And states like Washington are up front on the infiltration-based and retention-based practices, as they should be, and as we advocate for as well. There's a lot of other things that are listed here. The one that I wanted to focus on was the city and county of San Francisco versus EPA. This ruling came out in March. It was a close vote, and it was delivered. The opinion was delivered by Justice Alito, but the dissent by Barrett. So it was an interesting split. That's the reason I put that up there. Clearly, it wasn't a clear ideological split, which is refreshing these days. But the bottom line is that this case they found for San Francisco, and the finding, that the results of that is that EPA cannot use an end result view of things. They need to look at what's actually coming out of what's being discharged by a permittee. You can use narrative. There was some question about, could you use narrative language in permit provisions in NPDES permits? They preserve that, but because of the nature of the ruling, it looks like there might be more of a focus on specifics, performance, or some type of numeric integration into these provisions. So I bring that up because of that. This ties into the Washington TAPE program, New Jersey, their testing program, or the STEP, the program we're setting up as well. And that's why I wanted to mention real quickly, and quickly running out of time, so I don't want to go through all of this necessarily, but the STEP program, for those who aren't aware of it, it's the Stormwater Testing and Evaluation for Products and Practices program. It answers, or trying to answer, this problem statement that there's no national organization that provides consistent, evaluation of stormwater infrastructure. And again, of course, there's on the state side, there is, and TAPE is one of the best, if not the best, out there doing this. So we're working closely with TAPE on this front. So that's the goal of the STEP program, is to address and establish this national, or at least multi-state program that provides this testing platform, so that we can have an understanding and not a low playing field, but a level playing field, so we can compare apples to apples for technologies. And this is also it's called products and practices, because it's proprietary products that we're focusing on first, because there's more of a clear framework for testing and evaluation for those types of technologies. But for public domain, we need to have a better understanding in a consistent way about the performance of public domain practices as well. We're leveraging these respected programs at the state level. Again, TAPE is the clearest example of that. Overall, this is just about improving water quality and making a case that this is it's a value proposition. You wouldn't build a road or a bridge and not maintain it. Not want to know what the performance is going to be. It's the same way for stormwater. There's billions of dollars that go into the stormwater programs annually. But we don't have a whole lot of. We've got some, but we could have better confidence in that level of performance. So we think of STEP as a consumer reports for stormwater, in a plus or minus way. And you can see, like, there's technologies out there that say, hey, we've got all these, these great, our technology can do everything. It can do 99% of every kind of pollutant removal. Well, okay, that's great. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, as Carl Sagan said. So we need to, okay, we'll take you at your word, but we're going to verify it to make sure that it's actually legit. So that's what STEP's about. So we have to answer questions like, how is performance defined? How is it evaluated? Who's doing the performing or the evaluation? These are all things that the STEP program is trying to address. Who benefits from it? Who's paying for it? How often is the performance to be evaluated? Does it have to be evaluated periodically? So it's not just evaluation. There's a lot of things that go into this. And when we're fully operational, we're partially operational right now, or mostly operational, but we're developing testing standards. I'll talk about that. We're going to be verifying claims based upon those performance testing standards in the ASTM context, and providing technical guidance to understand what does this all mean. Get some performance data. How do I make sense of that into my book? But I just want to be clear, we do not do the testing ourselves. We do not perform testing. That's a confusion that comes up quite a bit, but we do not do that. We oversee the testing program and the process, and we verify testing results based upon standards. So just quickly, the way that it works is an application for a technology or product or practice is submitted to us. We review it. We oversee the testing plan, the testing results. We have an external review group called the Surge. We call them STEP External Review Group. Very similar to the Board of External Reviewers for tape, but not the same. And then we provide some documentation to the person who, or the group that submitted the application. They ask for approval based upon these results at the state or local level, and then it's either granted or not. We're also developing a suite of technical support documents to try to say, again, what does this testing information mean to you? Testing that's done in Washington State, for instance, it has a great testing facility. How does that translate to different climates and different physiographic regions and whatnot, as an example? Or how do I take this technical information on treatment potential or treatment performance, and how do I apply that to the standards I have, or translate it into my permit or my program? This is missing from a lot of programs because, frankly, they're all made for their own state, and that's pretty self-evident. They're constructed to provide the information that's already needed, so they already know what that means. But we're looking at trying to provide this across the country. This is guidance that's really important. And I do want to be clear that while we're developing this program, we are, again, building upon the work done by states. New Jersey's got their testing program, their lab testing program called NJCAT. We're also, again, working very closely with Doug Howe and Carl Malesi at Ecology and the Stormwater Center as well, to make sure that for TAPE's field testing program that we are, because field testing is more nuanced than lab testing, that we make sure that we can verify in a way that's similar and not similar, that's consistent with the spirit of what they've been doing. So that's going to be an ongoing practice. While that happens, and we're talking about at least a year or two, while that's happening, TAPE is still doing what they're doing. They're continuing to operate. There should be no ambiguity about the fact that they function as they have, just as, you know, the last whatever, 10, 15, 20 years, however I can't remember exactly, but at least 15 years that they've been around. So real quickly, the updates on this is that, you know, we helped to get an ASTM committee set up specifically for stormwater. That took a lot of work. That's been set up for a couple of years now. We've got a number of, and please join. We're trying, I'm the membership lead on that. So please join. It's only $115 we need annually, and we need to get more from the public sector to be part of this. You don't have to write standards, just review them quickly. It doesn't take a ton of time, but you guys should be involved to know what standards are being developed that are going to be applied to stormwater programs. We have a lab testing and a field testing subcommittee. This is where the kind of the sausage making occurs, where the standards are developed and reviewed at that level. We also have components. We've got a non-point. We've got other subcommittees, but the ones that really touch upon the STEP program are the lab testing, field testing subcommittees. And this is where we have a trash capture performance standard that's been finalized. It's actually being updated right now. We have for New Jersey, based upon New Jersey's protocols, hydrodynamic separator performance testing standards. And these are basically standards that say this is how you measure the performance of a technology. It's the how-to question. Filters and filter systems and whatnot, those standards, testing standards are going to be completed hopefully by the end of this year. And then we do have field testing standards that have been already taken from TAPE, brought into ASTM. Those are finalized. We're developing many more procedures and policies, processes within STEP as well that are basically mirroring in many ways, or in most ways, in almost all ways, the TAPE program. So we have a multi-phase program ever since we took the STEP program over in 2021 from the Water Environment Federation to get it launched. We're in the third phase of this multi-phase program, which is basically the operational phase. We have verifications going on right now. We've got 4 applications that are coming through. We're going to be hopefully generating our first live verification by the end of this year. I think easily by the end of this year, focusing on trash capture technologies. But we're going to be filling that up in a lot greater detail in the future. So we have a new website, stormwatertesting.org. As I mentioned before, MS4s can become members. Just to be aware, that's going on. I also wanted to specifically mention that tape, is operating. It's going to be viable. It's doing that. I already mentioned this, but I just want to drive this point home. That STEP and tape are working together in parallel. Once we're up and running again, tape will not fully end, but it will end at the kind of the services that they're providing right now. And we will probably be taking the things that the technologies that have been improved by tape. We will provide a concurrence review and verification of our own to bring them into our program in the future as well. So a lot of other things in the future. I'll just skip past this. I did want to mention in the looking out in the future, we're looking at things like maintenance requirements, long-term performance, even setting up kind of a synthetic stormwater kind of recipe, which is out and used a lot in basic research. We should develop our own kind of blend of what is stormwater, so we can be consistent by testing things in a consistent way. This is how we've done in the trash side of things. For instance, there's actually a trash recipe that was defined by Caltrans in a 2014 protocol. We took that and brought it into an ASTM standard. Those are the kind of things that we're looking at in the future. Again, if you want to join STEP, you can join STEP. All that information's out there. You become an NMSA member and a STEP member at the same time at the NMSA level. The last thing I'll mention, and I know we're running out of time relatively soon, is that we have bulk training for, I'd say, non-technical staff. There's a lot of training, that's out there. We are looking at the training that's really kind of the harder stuff to address in mass. So a lot of states have requirements that not just stormwater staff, but anyone that's Parks and Rec, first responders, maintenance folks, just so many, like it could be hundreds across a municipal landscape, personnel landscape that needs to be trained on things like IDDE, spill prevention, good housekeeping, those types of things. And that's what we're trying to help to address, because it's hard to track that. It's hard to do this in a cost-effective way, especially for small and mid-sized communities. So we've got our own learning management system where we have our training available. We're going to be expanding that, maybe working with other groups, maybe Washington and others who want to use that, our LMS as a platform for their training. So that's out there. It's available. Again, these are the topics. We have an offer for just IDDE, but we have all these other things. And again, this is very basic training. It's not meant to be in-depth technical training for folks. But again, you can take it in a bulk or per person, per staff. All this information is available at our training page right now. So you can, if you're a NMSA member, you get a discount as well. And you get a free NMSA membership when you get bulk training as well. And there is a number of communities that are already doing this right now. We've got a couple in Washington, Battleground, and Centralia who are receiving these services. So I'm happy to answer any questions on this. If you want to check out, information about it, check it out there, or you can contact me. And so I guess in conclusion, trying to wrap up here, I know you want to get going, Lori, so try to get this done before 55 after the hour. I just want to mention, again, NMSA's continue to grow and evolve through the support of groups like the Washington Stormwater Center, which we greatly appreciate. We're trying to get more MS4s to join us, so please consider joining us. Join us for free. Try us out. Because there's a lot going on the policy side and the national level, the legal rulings. We've had webinars about all of these things to try to take these things that happen at the national level and try to understand what does that mean for me in my program, or what will it mean in the future. And again, the STEP program's up and is operational and growing. And again, tape continues to function, but hopefully we'll continue to grow and be able to support the way that tape is supported in the past. We'll be able to do that in the future. So just invite you to join us to help to move the sector forward. So